ladies and gentlemen, having been invited by Carlo Petrini to give the opening address at the very first Terra Madre event in Turin in 2004, I cannot tell you how delighted I was to have received an invitation from Frank Roy to address the first indigenous Terra Madre gathering in India. I need hardly say that I am extremely sorry not to be with you in person. I wanted, therefore, to offer my warmest congratulations to the organisers of this unique gathering of indigenous food communities, not only for defending indigenous food sovereignty, but also for envisioning future food systems that maintain the resilience of the entire ecosystem by promoting rich biodiversity. You, ladies and gentlemen, are a model for linking traditional indigenous thinking with modern science as equal partners, a beacon of inspiration for others to learn from. We stand here at an historic moment where we can only enable a transition to living within our planetary boundaries if we adopt a more reverential approach in recognizing that we are not separate from nature, but actually part of it, and that if we listen to the wisdom which is still embodied in your cultural and spiritual traditions, we can find the guidance we need to live in harmony with the world around us. Now, I have no doubt that the necessary spirit of leadership lives within your communities, and I wish you all much strength and good fortune in your efforts to influence a more positive future for humanity during the coming days.
But farmers are recognized as conservers, cultivators, consumers, and generally doing multiple roles in the evolution of agriculture. I therefore congratulate Dr. Frank Roy for organizing this important meeting, and I hope as a result of this discussion everybody will come to know of the critical role of indigenous people in the development and conservation of agrobiodiversity and its sustainable use, and also the use of such diversity for ecosystem conservation. And it's important that their role is recognized and adequately rewarded economically, and also psychologically. They should be so told, they should be informed that their contributions have been important in the development of agrobiodiversity. As I started by saying, agrobiodiversity is the product of interaction between cultural and culinary and curative diversity and biodiversity. Cultural diversity is obvious. There are many cultures among tribal people. The culinary diversity is also obvious. There are very many methods of cooking and food consumption patterns, and curative diversity, which means medicinal plants. Many indigenous people have got their own medicinal plants for particular diseases, maybe fever, maybe any problem which they have, the health problem. Therefore, let us on this occasion salute those who have conserved biodiversity, who have introduced biodiversity into cultivation and economic utilization, thereby making them agrobiodiversity, and above all the women of the Northeast, who are really the custodians of both food security and food sovereignty, and thereby protecting national sovereignty in terms of food security. I wish the conference great success.
Martin Luther King said that we have a dream, but sometimes in our despair, we tend to say we have a nightmare. We have to change this, and we need to offer hope, and I sincerely hope, and I'm sure that with all of us here, ITM 2015 will be a period of hope. We need to offer to our youth a hope for growth and prosperity, but a growth and a prosperity that is within the ecological boundaries of our lands and territories. As a modern matriarchal society, we, the people of Meghalaya, want to portray to be a society of hope that continues to be socially egalitarian, economically balanced, and politically based on consensus decision taken as we used to in the years gone by.
Voi indicherete la strada.
You will show our way.
Guardate, questa umanità sta andando verso un disastro ambientale.
Because unfortunately our mankind is going towards in the same direction of a natural disaster.
E alle spalle ha messo le donne,
And behind we have our women,
ha messo i contadini,
the farmers,
ha messo i vecchi,
and the elderly,
ha messo gli indigeni,
and the indigenous people, where they're all neglected.
perché non importano, non sono importanti.
Because it seems that they are not important.
E tutti stiamo andando avanti verso il baratro.
And we're actually going ahead, forgetting them, and we are on the verge of collapse.
Ma quando saremo sul baratro,
But we just look down before collapsing.
per salvare l'umanità,
If we really want to save our mankind,
dovremo girarci.
we have to turn our back.
A quel punto chi ci indicherà la strada?
And who will be the people showing the way to all of us?
Le donne,
The women,
gli indigeni,
the indigenous people,
i contadini
the farmers,
e i vecchi.
and the elderly.
Grazie per questa
Thank you
riunione.
very much for this meeting.
It is time here for us to enrich ourselves with those valued informations and enrich ourselves with those knowledges, skills, the wealth of knowledge and skills which have been passed on through generations through our indigenous communities. And how this exercise can enable us also to leverage upon these traditional knowledge by linking with modernity, exploiting the advancement of science to ultimately make our way of life, culture, the agriculture more sustainable. It is an opportune moment for us to utilize and exploit this great event, to learn further and enrich ourselves with many more traditional knowledges that has been stored for generations through various communities, indigenous communities who have come here to participate.
We have farm to city programs where we have the farmers bring their food in and we value it and we buy it. We change policies. It is so wrong that these foods are more affordable than the foods that are grown in Nong Trao, these foods that are killing us. How do we change that policy here in Meghalaya, in my own country, and around the world? We need to introduce urban farming, and we need to honor our farmers like Bamon, who are there exchanging knowledge around the world. She's been to Terra Madre and is this incredible resource. And finally, we need to preserve these reservoirs like Nong Trao, because these are not just reservoirs for farming, these are reservoirs for our own personal health.
And if you want to be able to live in the future, you must be the people who return and grow your own food. Those practices must be enshrined, not only in our traditional ways of living, but in the public policies of our tribal governments, our First Nations, as we adopt tribal food regulations, as we all collectively adopt the rights of seeds, the rights to food that is fair and that is clean, and as we adopt and continue work to adopt and protect the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of nature. So that which we do here as producers, as harvesters, is very much that which the world counts on, not just in how we feed our communities, not just in how we feed each other, not just in how we continue our ceremonial and cultural practices, which ensure that relationship that goes on and on and on between people and plants, people and knowledge, and the beauty that is there, but also through transforming the policies which would oppress us, the policies which would oppress our food, the policies which would oppress us as Indigenous people. That is a struggle that is linked.
The future we want, life one home, one mind.
What we see around us reminds me of this poem by Jalaluddin Rumi, the 13th century Sufi poet, where he says, "Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. But don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the earth." And there are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the earth, and this is precisely what the Indigenous Terra Madre is about. To celebrate the hundreds of ways over generations that Indigenous communities have celebrated and performed of kneeling and kissing the earth. And what we have today with the panel before us are four outstanding people who have let the beauty they love be what they do, and they have developed their own way of kneeling and kissing the earth.
And I want to start to find out who we've really got here in the audience. I want to start by seeing each other. And I'd like to ask all those who are herders, who herd camels, goats, cattle, to please stand up. Can I ask all the fisher folk, people who work in lakes and oceans and rivers, to please stand up? If you harvest fish, can you please stand up? People who harvest wild foods, if you gather medicines in your forests, if you gather berries, mushrooms, may you please stand up? And now I'd like to ask those who work the earth, who are farmers and who take care of the soil, to please stand up. If you accompany these individuals, these fisher folk, if you're an accompanist to Indigenous people and support and accompany their work and enable bigger things to happen, please stand up. Everyone in the room should be standing right now. We're all involved in this. If you're at Indigenous Terra Madre, you are part of accompanying Indigenous people. And I want to thank you. I'd like you to each turn to each other now and thank each other for being here and taking this time. And whatever your language is, thank each other for what you do every day to protect the environment and to accompany Indigenous people in this work. Please turn to each other and let's just take a moment to thank each other. Thank you. I have a great deal of gratitude for the spirit and the energy that Indigenous people bring to their work. And you are all agroecologists. It's an odd term. It's not an Indigenous term. It's an exogenous term. But it's a term that we're using to describe many of your practices, livelihoods, your way with being of nature and community.
Before getting into the keynote address itself, I'd like to dedicate this plenary session to a group of women who are very much a part of ITM, not in this hall. You've seen them around. They're a group of women who keep our toilets clean, and I dedicate this session to them. The issue of supporting agrobiodiversity and agroecology for the future of food is a very complex one, and there's no standard formula. You can't be prescriptive. Each group, each community has to consider its own ecological specificity, where they're located, who they are, and evolve a plan or a program for themselves.
Producing food in the same way that their great ancestors did. These are people who know how to live with the land, take care of the land, take care of water, take care of air. And this is the future of food, because in 50 years we cannot eat the poison food that comes from industrial agriculture. We'll only be able to eat food if we take care of Mother Earth, and this is the people that do that.
It is still found in the jungles of forests, not in the garden, but jungle.
We cannot make it commercial. This is one of the heritage of our custom or our tradition. We cannot forget our own tradition, our own knowledge, our own wisdom. We are preserving it now.
This is what we should support. The local people, the local economy, not the big farmers, not the big companies. Leave them out of it.
When it comes down to it, we're all human. You know, we all have the basic human desires to live in a world that's healthy and good and friendly and full of good people and laughter and beauty and meaning and complexity. And so when we're all eating together, this is like our basic human instinct, is just to eat and be happy, right?
Celebration is meant to encourage people and to understand and to reawaken that local food systems, the basis of which is your agrobiodiversity, is one of our strengths that we must continue for our sake and for the sake of the world.